But first tonight, oil prices may be significantly lower now than they were at this time last year, but that doesn't mean that they are going to stay low. That is a big part of why the government continues to look for alternative forms of energy. One proposal that's getting a lot of attention right now is wind power.
Representative Chellie Pingree was among a group of Maine leaders who met with Energy Secretary Steven Chu in Washington this morning to discuss a project that would make Maine a leader when it comes to wind power. And Representative Pingree was kind enough to join us tonight. Welcome home.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
This would be big if Maine can land it.
Oh, absolutely. This could be very big. And we had the full court press on today. We had the entire delegation.
And the governor.
And Habib Dagger from the University of Maine at Orono. And the secretary seemed very interested. This could be big for Maine.
So what specifically are you asking for?
Well, we're asking for a fair amount of funding to first do a little bit of research in the prototypes of what an offshore wind tower and the blades would be like, and then in the long term to get started with it. We're very interested in building a partnership with the private industry on this, but the big goal is to build the prototype, to figure out how to do it, and to do it here in Maine. This could be a lot of jobs.
This is $20 million in federal funding. I can't think of the word.
In the stimulus package.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people would say, okay, enough with the research. We just need to get on to the point where we can buy wind power.
Absolutely. And the ask is actually a little bigger than $20 million, but $20 million is the first ask. It's to build some of the prototypes, to figure out a way to build more efficient wind blades. You know, some of the blades now have about a 3 to 5 year life, and if you're talking about offshore deep water, you have to have a tower that can withstand the weather and the wind.
And right now we don't have that technology.
We don't. Actually, nobody in the world has a working wind tower in deep water, but that's where the wind is good. And actually, Maine produces about 8% of all the wind available in the United States. And the President and the Secretary have set big goals to having electricity generated from new power sources, from new sources like wind, and we think it should happen here.
So if we land this, how soon could we actually be producing it?
I think they're thinking something like 2012, 2015, maybe a little further out than that, but they could be putting the prototypes in by then, and we want to be ahead of the curve.
At some point, presumably, the private sector is going to come in. There would be a private energy company that would get involved. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. But one of the challenges is a lot of the venture capital and the banks are saying, first you have to prove to us that it can work before we set up a series of these towers. But one of the good things about Maine is we have companies like Chinbro that have built oil rigs here. We have companies that have already been building wind towers on, mainland wind. So we already know that we've got a good start in it. Plus, we have a lot of boat builders and others who have worked in composites, and the university's done a lot of research in new technology. So we're in the right place.
Last summer, the price of oil hit $150 a barrel. This past winter, it went down to about $35 a barrel. It's now at about $80. So it's going all over the place. At what point does oil need to be for wind power to become commercially viable and attractive?
Well, we think it's already there because the federal government has already set some very high goals for turning our power generation needs into renewables. So we already think that we have to start moving forward if we want to be ahead of this curve and if we want to be ahead of prices rising again. And remember, we also have huge concerns around global warming. Congress is about to pass a bill probably sometime this summer or early in the fall, so the pressure is going to be on.
I would think that we have a lot of competitors for this bid. Massachusetts, probably one of our biggest. What do we have over them?
Well, we have people who are practical and have been building these kinds of things inland already. We've got more wind power going in the state of Maine than anywhere else in New England. We have more wind. We have more deep water. And we think we have a lot of public support. The legislature just passed a bill that the governor signed yesterday, hastening the permitting process so that we can actually already begin thinking about where these sites will be. And I happen to live on the island of North Haven and Vinyl Haven. We're putting up wind towers in the next year, 1.5 megawatts of wind power. And when we took a vote in our community, it was something like 385 to 5 in favor of doing it. So I actually think there's a lot of public support and a lot of interest, and we certainly have the need for the jobs here in this state.
Very briefly, any environmental opposition, because there has been to an offshore wind power project near Cape Cod, for instance?
There has, and that's why I was so heartened to see that offshore in North Haven and Vinyl Haven, 12 miles offshore, people were so strongly in favor of it. I think the prices are high. We're tired of oil dependence here. We could use the jobs. There will certainly be concerns, and we'll need to go through the permitting process, but I think people are going to be staunchly behind this.
Okay, Representative Chellie Pingree, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you'd like more information on Representative Pingree, we've got a link. Just go to our website, the 207 section.